this opportunity to tell you a little bit about these guys, and then our toner floor review, and we can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Now, first off, just a little bit of background. We do have 14 adult male American alligators in here right now. These guys range in size from right around 10.5 feet all the way up to 13 feet, and from roughly right around 300 pounds all the way up to 800 pounds. So we do have some pretty big boys in here right now. 12 out of the 14 that you see inside this habitat did actually come from another zoo, so we know they're 21 years of age, and they've been here with us for about 7 years now, about 6-7 years now. And my other two, however, are actually some of our original alligators here at the park. They're actually a couple of males that came to us back in the mid-1970s. And
yeah, I'm not getting close to this gate, though.
As nuisance alligators, and we've been taking care of them ever since. Now, believe it or not, back in the 1970s, the American alligator was actually considered critically endangered. So back then, a real important thing happened. The Endangered Species Act was started up, and the American alligator was actually one of the first animals placed on the list for protection. The reason for them being critically endangered is these guys were actually very sought after for meat products and leather products all throughout the 50s and 60s, and there was really no regulations on the hunting and stuff, so these guys were overhunted, almost into extinction. But like I mentioned, we started protecting them right around the mid-1970s. Another important thing happened back then as well. Not only with the protection and stuff, but a breeding program was put into place back in the mid-70s as well. And a lot of institutions like here at Busch Gardens, a lot of other facilities started taking in American alligators that Fish and Wildlife would get, and they would bring them from the different local areas and stuff and bring them to the zoos. And breeding programs were actually put into place to kind of help boost the numbers. Now, a female alligator can actually lay up to 60 eggs at a time. And so you can have a very high success rate in a zoo environment, so we were able to boost numbers very, very quickly, along with all the other institutions as well. So the numbers started coming up quite rapidly. We went from them being critically endangered to just being protected and endangered within 20 years. So that's actually a very, very fast rate of time to bring those guys back from the brink of extinction. It's actually been such a successful program that we now have millions of alligators all throughout the southeastern United States again. Right here in Florida, we're actually estimated to have right around 1.5 million. Our state is actually second. There's another state out there with a heavier population than we have. Any guesses as to which state that is?
Texas.
Louisiana, that's exactly right.
Oh, that makes sense.
Actually estimated to have just over 2 million alligators now. So they are doing very, very well. So these guys do range as far north as the Carolinas and as far west as Texas is where you're going to find the American alligator. Now, I did mention earlier that our first guys came in as nuisance animals. Does anybody know the number one cause that might create a nuisance alligator?
People.
Feeding them. That's exactly right. Why is it a bad idea to feed alligators or any wild animals?
Because they're an alligator.
Yeah, they start approaching you, coming up to you. Yeah. So basically, alligators, believe it or not, actually have a natural aversion to us. But once you start to feed them, they lose that natural fear and they start approaching people looking for a handout. That's a very bad situation. That's why it's actually against the law to feed alligators, because it creates a dangerous situation for everybody out there, including the alligator as well. Because unfortunately, once the alligator does lose that natural fear, they're going to continue to approach people throughout their entire lifespan. So it's really, really hard to relocate these guys. And as a matter of fact, with the high numbers, there really is no more relocation for the American alligator anymore. So typically, once they are deemed a nuisance, they're pulled and destroyed. So they definitely lose out in the end. So we always like to get that message out there. If you guys remember, you never want to feed alligators out there in the wild or any wildlife, because it does create those bad situations. All right, so tell you real quick a little bit about what's going on with our guys. So we are in our fall season, getting into winter season here in Florida. Things are starting to slow down for the American alligator. Appetite has actually dropped off drastically. For our guys, they're only going to eat once a week right now during this time of year, and they're getting ready to go into a semi-hibernation called torpor. Where basically they'll pretty much stop eating altogether, usually about the end of November until about the middle of March. And they spend their days doing exactly what you see these guys doing up on the bank right now. And what is it that our alligators are doing?
Sunbathing.
They're sunning themselves. That's exactly right. So these guys are what you consider to be ectothermic. And what that means is they rely on outside sources for their own core body temperature. So during the winter months especially, it's important for these guys to find those heat sources and stuff, so they're going to come out and bask every chance they get to build up their core temperature. Now, the American alligator is particularly efficient at building up their core temperature. I'll use this guy as an example right here. If you look all along his back right there, all those bumps and ridges, those are called osteoderms. Now, believe it or not, you're actually looking at a natural solar panel. That's thermal bone that's directly covered by skin. It's very porous bony plates, and it allows blood flow to travel all throughout that bone. and it brings it very close to
So the whole
surface.
time I
So
knew.
when that skin and that bone heats up, it heats up very rapidly, very efficiently, warms up all that blood that then circulates through his body, and that's what brings up his core temperature. Now, the American alligator is actually so good at this, they can actually get their core temperature about 15 degrees above the ambient temperature. So it's also easy for these guys to overheat themselves. So what do you guys think? What would be some obvious ways these guys will pull back off?
Yeah.
They're going to go back in the water. That's one way. How else are they going to cool off? Or somebody say shade over here. So shade's another good way. And then she got the really good one over there. She did this motion. She's saying open their mouth. And that's the other way these guys regulate body temperature. So some of these ways using water and shade are good ways. A really interesting way is by opening up their mouth and panting just like a dog would do. Alligators have a lot of blood flow inside their mouth as well, so when that air moves back and forth across their mouth when that panting, it acts kind of like a radiator that brings that temperature down to more manageable level. So that's a little bit about what's going on with these guys. I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor of you. If you guys have any questions, I want to go ahead and start answering some questions.